The neon signs of New Phoenix Spaceport flickered against the midnight black sky, casting fractured light across the industrial repair district. Jack Martinez's workshop stood as a solitary beacon of activity, a single window illuminated against the darkness of the outer colony's mechanical graveyard. Spare parts hung from magnetic racks, and half-dismantled engines rested on workbenches like sleeping mechanical beasts. Jack wiped his hands on a well-worn rag, the fabric as gray as the stubble covering his chin. At 35, he carried the weathered look of a man who had seen more machinery than people, his hands telling stories of 1,000 repairs. The workshop was more than a business. It was a sanctuary of sorts, a place where discarded technology found new life under his careful touch. Outside, the night air carried the distinct hum of distant spacecraft and the occasional rumble of cargo shuttles, making late-night approaches to the spaceport. New Phoenix was a frontier settlement, a melting pot of human colonists and the occasional alien trader. Located on the edge of explored space, it was a place where innovation met desperation, where every repair could mean the difference between survival and being stranded. Jack's attention drifted to the old holographic display mounted on the workshop wall. It flickered with maintenance logs, unpaid bills, and a few cherished memories. A photograph of his parents, pioneers who had helped establish the first human colonies, watched over him. They had taught him that every machine had a story, every broken part a potential for resurrection. The first sign of trouble came as a distant vibration. Jack's hand instinctively reached for the structural integrity sensors he had custom-built. They were more sensitive than standard commercial models, a testament to his reputation as a mechanic who understood machines on a level most considered impossible. A brilliant streak of light erupted across the sky, cutting through the darkness like a laser. It wasn't the smooth trajectory of a standard spacecraft landing. This was something else entirely, a violent, uncontrolled descent that screamed of critical system failure. Jack was already moving, grabbing his emergency repair kit and thermal scanning equipment. Years of experience had taught him that the first moments after a crash were critical. Whether it was a human transport or an alien vessel, every second counted. The impact came with a thunderous roar that shook the entire repair district. Distant car alarms blared to life, and the neon signs flickered momentarily. Jack's workshop windows rattled in their frames, and for a moment, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. Rushing outside, Jack activated his portable scanner. The device hummed to life, its advanced sensors cutting through the dust and debris of the crash site. The spacecraft was like nothing he had ever seen, a crystalline structure that seemed to shimmer and pulse, even as smoke rose from its damaged hull. Its design was clearly alien, far beyond current human engineering capabilities. Most mechanics would have kept their distance. Alien technology was notoriously complex, and unauthorized repairs could result in significant legal complications. But Jack saw something different. Where others saw an incomprehensible machine, he saw a puzzle waiting to be solved. The scanner indicated multiple system failures. Quantum drive components were critically damaged, energy conduits were fractured, and the ship's adaptive shielding was barely functional. Any standard repair shop would have immediately contacted Interstellar authorities and waited for specialized recovery teams. But Jack Martinez was not a standard mechanic. As he approached the crashed vessel, a movement caught his eye. Something was emerging from the wreckage, a figure that moved with a grace that defied the violence of the crash. Iridescent skin caught the moonlight, revealing intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with life and pain. First contact was about to get interesting. The night of impact was far from over. For Jack Martinez, it was just the beginning of an adventure that would change everything he understood about technology, alien life, and humanity's place in the universe. The figure emerging from the crystalline wreckage moved with a combination of grace and pain that defied human understanding. Crease's body was a marvel of biological engineering. Her skin a living canvas of iridescent patterns that shifted and pulsed like living light. Each movement suggested an anatomy fundamentally different from human physiology, with joints that bent at impossible angles and a fluidity that seemed more like liquid than solid form. Jack stood his ground, years of working in a multicultural spaceport having taught him that panic was the worst possible response to an unexpected encounter. His scanner continued to ping, providing a constant stream of data about the aliens' biological readings. Elevated heart rate, multiple micro-injuries, extreme stress indicators. "Are you injured?" Jack called out, keeping his voice steady and low. He knew from experience that universal translators could sometimes misinterpret tone and urgency. Chris's response was not verbal. Instead, a complex series of light patterns rippled across her skin, a language of color and movement that most humans would find incomprehensible. But Jack had seen something similar before. Traders from the Luminary cluster occasionally passed through New Phoenix, and he had learned to recognize basic communication patterns. The universal translator on his repair belt hummed to life, converting the light patterns into a mechanical but understandable voice. Structural integrity compromised. Primary navigation systems failed. Diplomatic mission critical. Jack took a careful step forward. The alien's body language suggested she was wounded but not defenseless. Every movement was calculated, every shift of her crystalline form a potential defensive mechanism. "I'm Jack Martinez," he said, tapping his chest. "Mechanic, I can help repair your ship." The translator interpreted Chris's response as a complex mixture of skepticism and desperation. The light pattern suggested an entire conversation, doubt about human capabilities, urgent need for repair, and a deep-seated fear of mission failure. Most repair technicians would have called for specialized alien contact teams, but Jack saw something more interesting. Where others saw an incomprehensible alien vessel, he saw the most fascinating mechanical puzzle of his career. "Your quantum drive is critically damaged," Jack said, pulling out a handheld diagnostic tool. "The energy cascades have fractured the dimensional stabilization matrix. Most repair teams would recommend complete replacement." Chris's response came as a burst of blue-green light patterns that the translator rendered as pure disbelief. "Replacement requires 72 standard cycles. Mission parameters cannot accommodate delay." Jack allowed himself a slight smile. This was where human ingenuity differed from standard galactic protocols. Where other species saw insurmountable challenges, he saw opportunities for creative solutions. The ship's exterior was unlike anything in human engineering catalogs. Crystalline structures that seemed to breathe and shift, quantum-adaptive materials that responded to environmental changes in microseconds. Each component was a masterpiece of alien engineering, complex beyond standard human understanding. But complexity was just another word for an unsolved puzzle. Chrissa watched carefully as Jack began a preliminary examination. Her species, the Zilarians, were known throughout the Galactic Concordance for their technological superiority. Humans were considered newcomers, barely beyond basic interstellar travel. The idea that this lone mechanic could repair her critically damaged vessel was beyond improbable. Yet something in Jack's movements suggested a different approach. Where Zilarian engineers followed strict, predetermined repair protocols, he moved with an intuitive understanding that seemed to bend the very rules of technological interaction. "Your primary quantum coupling is misaligned by 0.003 microradians," Jack muttered, more to himself than to Chrissa. "Standard repair would involve complete replacement, but I think we can recalibrate using some adaptive components." The translator struggled to capture the complexity of Chris's response, a mixture of scientific curiosity, cultural surprise, and the first hint of potential respect. As the night wore on, the repair yard became a meeting point of two vastly different technological approaches. Jack's workshop, filled with seemingly primitive Earth-manufactured parts, would become the unlikely stage for a repair that could change interstellar perceptions forever. First contact was supposed to be a grand, orchestrated event. Nobody had told Jack Martinez it would happen in his modest repair shop, with a damaged spacecraft and a whole lot of improvisation. But then again, Nobody knew Jack Martinez quite like the machines he loved to repair. The interior of Krisa's spacecraft defied every standard of engineering Jack had ever encountered. Quantum circuits wove through the crystalline structure like living neural networks, pulsing with an energy that seemed more organic than mechanical. Most repair technicians would have been paralyzed by the complexity, but Jack saw something different, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Your primary quantum coupling is more than a simple mechanical connection, Jack muttered, his hands moving with a surgeon's precision. Specialized tools from his workshop, some custom-built, others cobbled together from years of innovative repairs, began to map the intricate system. Krisa watched, her body language a complex dance of light and subtle movement. The universal translator struggled to capture the nuance of her communication. What emerged was a mix of scientific skepticism and growing curiosity. Human technology is considered primitive by galactic concordance standards. The translator rendered her patterns. Repair probability is estimated at less than 0.3%. Jack chuckled, a sound that seemed to momentarily confuse the alien. Probability is just another word for a challenge not yet understood. The quantum drive was a masterpiece of alien engineering. Dimensional stabilization matrices interconnected in patterns that would make most physicists weep. Where a standard repair team would require months of specialized equipment and multiple species expertise, Jack was developing a solution using parts from his workshop. He pulled out a set of adaptive quantum resonance couplers, a device he had originally designed for repairing communication arrays on deep space mining platforms. The components were decidedly Earth-manufactured, robust, slightly crude by galactic standards, but built with a philosophy of adaptability that most alien technologies overlooked. Your quantum drive doesn't just transmit energy, Jack explained, more to himself than to Krisa. It creates micro-dimensional bridges. The damage isn't just a mechanical failure, it's a dimensional injury. The workshop transformed into a laboratory of impossible solutions. Jack's hands moved with an intuition that seemed to defy the very laws of technological repair. He understood machines not as static objects, but as living systems with their own language and potential. Krisa's light patterns became more complex. The translator struggled to capture the full depth of her communication. What emerged was a mixture of professional analysis and growing amazement. Your approach violates 17 fundamental principles of quantum mechanical restoration. The device rendered her communication. Good, Jack responded. Principles are just guidelines until someone proves them wrong. The repair was more than a technical challenge. It was a dialogue between two fundamentally different approaches to technology. Xylarian engineering followed strict, predetermined protocols. Human innovation thrived on breaking those very protocols. Jack discovered that the ship's quantum drive had suffered more than a simple mechanical failure. The dimensional stabilization matrix had been compromised at a fundamental level. Standard repair would involve complete replacement, a process that would take months and potentially compromise the critical mission Krisa was undertaking. But Jack saw another path. Using a combination of Earth-standard adaptive resonance couplers and a custom-built quantum frequency realignment tool, he began to reconstruct the damaged systems. Each movement was a delicate dance of technological improvisation. Where Xylarian engineers would use specialized multi-spectrum quantum tools, Jack used creativity and a deep understanding of systemic interactions. Your technology doesn't just transmit energy, Jack explained, his hands moving across the quantum circuits. It creates living connections. These aren't just components. They're a language of energy and potential. Krisa's body language suggested a growing sense of disbelief transforming into something else. Respect. Curiosity. The universal translator could only provide a limited interpretation of the complex light patterns that rippled across her skin. As hours passed, the impossible began to take shape. Damaged quantum circuits found new life through Jack's unconventional approach. Earth-manufactured components integrated with alien technology in ways that defied standard engineering principles. The repair was becoming more than a technical challenge. It was a conversation between two different approaches to understanding technology, possibility, and innovation. Jack Martinez was doing more than fixing a spacecraft. He was challenging everything the Galactic Concordance understood about human potential. The workshop grew quiet save for the subtle hum of diagnostic equipment and the occasional spark of quantum circuits finding new life. Jack noticed Chris's increasing restlessness, a language of light and subtle movement that spoke volumes beyond words. "Your mission," Jack said carefully, "it's more than a simple diplomatic transport." Chris's response came as a complex pattern of blue and silver light. The universal translator struggled momentarily before rendering her communication. Diplomatic integrity requires minimal disclosure, but something in Jack's persistent gaze seemed to wear down her resolve. The Zalarian diplomatic corps trained their members to be masters of information control, yet here she was, in a small repair shop at the edge of human-explored space, finding herself unexpectedly transparent. The universal translator caught the nuanced shift in her communication. The Krell territorial expansion threatens multiple star systems. Current diplomatic channels are insufficient. Jack's hands never stopped working, moving across the quantum circuits with an intuition that suggested he was listening as much with his hands as with his ears. Most would have demanded full details, but he understood that information was as delicate as the quantum systems he was repairing. Chris's mission was a diplomatic tightrope. The Zalarian Confederacy and the expanding Krell territories had been locked in an escalating conflict that threatened to consume dozens of independent star systems. Traditional diplomatic channels had failed repeatedly. The data she carried was more than information. It was a potential key to preventing widespread destruction. "How many systems are at risk?" Jack asked, his voice calm and professional. The light patterns shifted, a Zalarian equivalent of a heavy sigh. 47 star systems, approximately 3.2 billion sentient beings. Civilizations that ranged from primitive technological stages to advanced spacefaring cultures. Jack understood something fundamental in that moment. This wasn't just a diplomatic mission. It was a potential lifeline for entire worlds. The quantum drive began to stabilize under his hands. Each repaired circuit was more than a mechanical fix. It was a bridge between potential futures. Krisa watched with a mixture of professional detachment and growing fascination. "Your species is considered a non-factor in galactic diplomacy," the translator rendered her communication. But the tone suggested something more complex, a growing respect that defied official classifications. Jack smiled slightly. "We're good at being underestimated." As the night progressed, more details emerged. The Krell were expansionist by nature, a species that viewed territorial growth as a fundamental survival strategy. Their technological approach was brutal and direct. Entire star systems had been absorbed or destroyed in their relentless march across the galaxy. The Zalarian Confederacy represented a different approach, diplomatic, nuanced, focused on peaceful resolution. But their methods were becoming increasingly ineffective against the Krell's aggressive expansion. The data Krisa carried was revolutionary, not just a diplomatic communique, but a comprehensive analysis that revealed critical weaknesses in the Krell's territorial strategy. More importantly, it suggested alternative approaches that could potentially halt their expansion without massive military conflict. "Why me?" Jack asked suddenly, looking up from the quantum circuits. "Why not contact official diplomatic channels?" Chris's response came as a burst of complex light patterns. The translator struggled, then produced a cryptic message. Sometimes, solutions come from unexpected sources. The repair was becoming something more than a technical challenge. It was transforming into a pivotal moment, a potential turning point for multiple civilizations. Jack realized he was no longer just fixing a spacecraft. He was participating in a drama that stretched across multiple star systems, involving civilizations whose complexity far exceeded human understanding. As the first hints of dawn began to filter through the workshop windows, the quantum drive hummed to life. Not just repaired, but reimagined. The mission was back on track, and nothing would be the same again. The first rays of morning light filtered through the workshop's dust-covered windows, casting long shadows across the scattered tools and half-assembled machinery. Jack's workspace was a testament to years of improvisation, each tool and component telling a story of creative problem-solving. Chrissa moved differently now, her initial caution replaced by a cautious curiosity. Her iridescent skin continued to pulse with complex light patterns, but Jack was beginning to read the subtle nuances of her communication. "Your tools," she said, the universal translator rendering her light patterns into words. "They are not standard issue for spacecraft repair." Jack chuckled, picking up a modified power coupling that looked like it had been cobbled together from at least 3 different systems. "On the frontier, you learn to make do with what you have. Perfection is nice. Functionality is survival." The workshop was a museum of human adaptation. Repurposed mining equipment sat alongside custom-built diagnostic tools. Each piece told a story of innovation born from necessity, where Zalarian technology relied on precision and complex manufacturing. Human technology celebrated adaptability. Chris's light patterns suggested deep analytical processing. The universal translator struggled to capture the full complexity of her thoughts. "Your technological approach defies standard galactic classification," she communicated, her body shifting in what seemed like a mixture of confusion and intrigue. Jack understood something fundamental about communication that went beyond words. It was about listening, truly listening, to the underlying message. His years working with traders from dozens of different species had taught him that technology was just another language. "We humans," Jack explained, holding up a modified quantum resonance tool, "we don't just see machines as they are. We see them as they could be." The cultural exchange went beyond mere technological discussion. Chrissa began to share insights about Solarian society, a civilization that valued collective knowledge and predetermined technological evolution. Their approach to problem-solving was methodical, linear, based on millennia of documented scientific progression. Human innovation was different, chaotic, unpredictable. Jack showed her how he had modified standard communication arrays used in deep space mining platforms. What should have been a simple signal booster had been transformed into a multi-frequency adaptive communication device. Each modification told a story of human creativity. "In your culture," Chris's patterns translated, "innovation is an individual pursuit." "Not exactly," Jack responded, adjusting a delicate quantum circuit. "Innovation is a community effort. We learn from each other, build on each other's ideas. Our strength is in our ability to adapt, to see connections others might miss." The universal translator struggled with the nuance, but the underlying message was clear. Human potential was defined by its capacity for unexpected solutions. Chris's own mission began to make more sense in this context. The diplomatic data she carried wasn't just information. It was a complex puzzle that required a fundamentally different approach to problem-solving. As hours passed, the initial barriers of communication began to dissolve. Chris's light patterns became more fluid, less guarded. She shared details about Xylarian exploration, their approach to interstellar diplomacy, the complex networks of communication that spanned multiple star systems. Jack listened with the same attention he gave to a complex mechanical system. Every piece of information was a potential solution, a new way of understanding the universe. "Your species has been spacefaring for less than 3 centuries, Chris's patterns translated. But the tone suggested something more than simple observation. There was a growing sense of respect. "We're quick learners," Jack responded with a slight smile. The repair continued, but it had become something more than a technical challenge. It was a dialogue between 2 fundamentally different approaches to understanding the universe. Xylarian precision met human creativity, and in that intersection, something remarkable was taking shape. Outside the workshop, New Phoenix continued its daily rhythm, a frontier settlement where different species and cultures intersected. But inside, a more profound conversation was happening. A conversation that would challenge everything the Galactic Concordance understood about human potential. As the quantum drive hummed with renewed energy, Jack and Chrissa worked side by side. Two different species, one unexpected mission. The universe was about to get interesting. The workshop fell into a precise rhythm of discovery. Jack's hands moved with an intuition that seemed to blur the lines between mechanical engineering and artistic expression. Chrissa watched, her iridescent skin pulsing with patterns that reflected a growing sense of scientific fascination. The quantum communication array, Jack muttered, more to himself than to Chrissa. It's not just damage. It's been fundamentally altered at a dimensional level. Most repair teams would have declared the system irreparable. The quantum entanglement had been disrupted in a way that defied standard restoration protocols. Microscopic fractures ran through the dimensional matrices, creating a complex web of interference that would typically require complete system replacement. Chrissa's light patterns suggested intense analytical processing. Zalarian restoration protocols require complete quantum matrix reconstruction. The universal translator rendered her communication. Estimated repair time: 72 standard cycles. Jack's response was a smile that spoke volumes. We don't do standard very well. The breakthrough came from an unexpected combination. Jack pulled out a set of adaptive resonance couplers he had originally designed for deep space communication relays. They were a hybrid solution, part Earth technology, part pure innovative thinking. The quantum array was more than a communication device. It was a living network of dimensional connections, each circuit a delicate bridge between different points in spacetime. Where Zalarian engineers saw a broken system, Jack saw a puzzle waiting to be solved. Your technology doesn't just transmit information, Jack explained, his hands moving with surgical precision. It creates living connections. These aren't just circuits, they're pathways of potential. Chrissa's body language suggested a mixture of scientific skepticism and growing amazement. The universal translator struggled to capture the full complexity of her communication. What emerged was a fragmented message of disbelief and emerging respect. The repair was becoming a dialogue between two fundamentally different approaches to technology. Zalarian engineering followed strict, predetermined protocols. Human innovation thrived on breaking those very protocols. Jack discovered that the quantum array's damage was more than a simple mechanical failure. The dimensional stabilization had been compromised at a fundamental level. Each circuit was a complex network of potential connections, waiting to be reimagined. Using a combination of Earth-standard adaptive resonance couplers and a custom-built quantum frequency realignment tool, he began to reconstruct the damaged systems. Each movement was a delicate dance of technological improvisation. Information isn't just about transmission, Jack explained, his fingers tracing intricate patterns across the quantum circuits. It's about connection, about creating pathways that didn't exist before. The workshop transformed into a laboratory of impossible solutions. Jack's approach violated every standard repair protocol in the Galactic Concordance. He wasn't just fixing the quantum array, he was reimagining its entire functional structure. Chrissa's communication patterns became increasingly complex. The universal translator struggled to render the full depth of her growing realization. What emerged was a message that hinted at something profound. Humans saw technology not as a fixed system, but as a living, adaptable network. As hours passed, the impossible began to take shape. Damaged quantum circuits found new life through Jack's unconventional approach. Earth-manufactured components integrated with alien technology in ways that defied standard engineering principles. The breakthrough came suddenly. A cascade of quantum frequencies aligned in a pattern that should have been impossible. The communication array hummed to life, its dimensional matrices reconstructed in a way that no Zalarian engineer would have conceived. Probability of successful restoration, Chrissa's patterns translated, exceeded all calculated parameters. Jack's response was simple. Probability is just another word for a challenge not yet understood. More than a repair was happening. A fundamental reimagining of technological potential was taking place. The quantum array was now something entirely new, a hybrid system that spoke to the power of collaborative innovation. Outside, New Phoenix continued its daily rhythm. But inside the workshop, something remarkable was happening. A conversation that would challenge everything the Galactic Concordance understood about human potential. The mission was back on track, and nothing would be the same again. The final moments of repair carried a sense of profound transformation. Jack's workshop, once a simple frontier repair station, now felt like a crossroads of interstellar significance. Chris's body language had changed completely, the initial skepticism replaced by something more complex: respect, curiosity, and a growing understanding. The diplomatic data Chrissa communicated, her light patterns now more fluid and direct, represents more than information. It is a potential pathway to preventing widespread conflict. Jack wiped grease from his hands, looking at the now fully restored spacecraft. What had begun as a seemingly impossible repair had become something far more significant. The quantum array he had reconstructed was not just functional, it was a testament to human innovative potential. Chris's communication became more nuanced. The universal translator struggled to capture the full depth of her message. What emerged was a complex narrative about the Galactic Concordance's perception of humanity, a species viewed as technological newcomers, barely recognized as a significant interstellar civilization. Your repair challenges fundamental understanding, her patterns translated, not just of technology, but of potential. The reward began to take shape in ways Jack could never have anticipated. Chrissa accessed a secure data transfer, her crystalline form becoming a conduit of information. Technological schematics began to download into Jack's workshop systems, designs that represented centuries of advanced alien engineering. But it wasn't just technical information. The data included mineral claims on unexplored planets, advanced research protocols, and diplomatic access credentials that would typically take generations for a species to acquire. Recommendation to the Galactic Concordance, Chrissa communicated, will highlight human capacity for innovative problem-solving. Jack understood the significance. This was more than a personal opportunity. This was a potential gateway for human technological and diplomatic expansion. The mineral claims alone were extraordinary. Rare earth elements, quantum adaptive materials, energy sources that could transform human technological capabilities. Planets and systems that most human explorers wouldn't reach for decades were now potentially accessible. But the most valuable reward was something less tangible. The diplomatic credentials suggested a fundamental shift in how humanity would be perceived. No longer just observers, but potential partners in galactic problem-solving. Your approach, Chris's patterns continued, demonstrates a flexibility that our current diplomatic strategies lack. The conflict with the Krell requires precisely this kind of adaptive thinking. Jack's workshop, a modest repair station on the frontier of human explored space, had become the unexpected birthplace of a potential interstellar diplomatic breakthrough. The data transfer completed. Chris's form shifted, preparing for departure. But something had fundamentally changed. The initial transaction of ship repair had transformed into something far more profound. Your species is underestimated, her communication translated. This will change. As the spacecraft prepared for departure, Jack realized he was no longer just a mechanic. He had become an unexpected diplomat, a bridge between human potential and galactic understanding. The mineral claims would provide resources. The technological schematics would accelerate human innovation. But the real value was the recognition, a fundamental shift in how humanity would be perceived among the stars. Chris's final communication was both a warning and an invitation. The diplomatic data she carried could prevent a war, but implementing it would require exactly the kind of innovative thinking Jack had demonstrated. The mission continues, her patterns suggested, but the approach has changed. As the spacecraft's quantum drive hummed to life, Jack Martinez stood in his workshop, a simple mechanic who had just changed the trajectory of human interstellar relations. The universe, it seemed, had unexpected plans. Outside, New Phoenix continued its daily rhythm. Ships came and went, Most would never know how a single repair had potentially altered humanity's place among the stars. But everything had changed. 3 standard months after Chris's departure, Jack Martinez's life had transformed beyond recognition. His modest repair shop in New Phoenix had become something entirely unexpected, a diplomatic nexus for human-alien interactions. The first indication of change came with an official communication from the Galactic Conquerors. The diplomatic credentials packet arrived, its quantum-encrypted seal unlike anything Jack had ever seen. Most would have been intimidated. Jack simply grabbed his favorite multi-tool and carefully examined the document. Recommendations from Chrisa had opened doors that humanity had never imagined possible. The mineral claims she had provided were not just valuable, they were revolutionary. Rare planetary systems with resources that could transform human technological capabilities were now accessible. Research institutions and exploration committees fought for the opportunity to collaborate with the mechanic who had seemingly rewritten the rules of interstellar diplomacy. But Jack was more interested in the potential than the recognition. His workshop began to attract a diverse array of visitors. Traders from the Luminary Cluster brought complex technological challenges. Diplomatic envoys from multiple star systems sought his unique perspective. Where other repair stations saw obstacles, Jack saw opportunities for innovative solutions. The quantum array repair had become something of a legendary story. Scientific journals and diplomatic records documented how a human mechanic had solved a problem that entire teams of advanced alien engineers had deemed impossible. It wasn't just a technological achievement. It was a statement about human potential. Chris's diplomatic data continued to prove crucial. The potential conflict between the Zolarian Confederacy and the expanding Krell territories remained a delicate situation. Jack's innovative approach had provided a new perspective, one that emphasized adaptive problem-solving over traditional diplomatic protocols. Humans see connections, one Zolarian diplomatic advisor noted in an official report, where others see only barriers. The mineral claims transformed New Phoenix from a simple frontier settlement to a hub of interstellar innovation. Research stations began to emerge, attracted by the unique combination of human creativity and the advanced technological schematics Jack had received. But for Jack, the most significant change was more personal. He understood now that his work was about more than repairing machines. It was about building bridges between technologies, between cultures, between potential futures that nobody else could see. The workshop remained fundamentally the same. The same magnetic racks held spare parts. The same worn workbenches supported half-completed projects. But everything had changed. Diplomatic credentials sat alongside repair manuals. Advanced alien technological schematics were carefully organized next to Earth-manufactured tools. Each item told a story of possibility. Occasionally, Chrisa would send encrypted communications, not as formal diplomatic messages, but as something closer to professional correspondence. Each transmission carried new challenges, new perspectives on technological innovation. The Galactic Concordance had begun to see humanity differently. No longer just newcomers to interstellar exploration, but potential problem solvers with a unique approach to understanding complex challenges. Jack's recommendation to research institutions was simple but profound. Look at problems as living systems, not as fixed challenges, but as potential waiting to be understood. New Phoenix became a symbol of something larger, a place where frontier innovation met galactic potential, where a simple mechanic could change the trajectory of interstellar relations with nothing more than creativity, intuition, and a well-worn multi-tool. The spacecraft that had crashed months ago now stood as a museum piece, a testament to the power of unexpected collaboration. Scientists and diplomats would study its reconstruction for years, trying to understand the innovative approach that had made the impossible possible. As evening fell, Jack stood in his workshop, the same space where everything had changed. Spare parts hung from magnetic racks. Half-completed projects waited for his attention. But now, each item represented something more than a technical challenge. They represented possibility. The universe, it seemed, was just beginning to understand human potential. and Jack Martinez was ready for whatever challenge came next.